the dust cover there so that it doesn't get all tussled. Let's pin that so that way TikTok will stop yelling at me about how I'm promoting something but not promoting it. Now I'm actually promoting something. But another beautiful day of Revenge of the Sith. How's it going, Panda? Welcome. And Artie, nice to see you. Hello, Megan. Welcome. Trying to see, how far did we get last time? We're going to be reading some more Revenge of the Sith. Oh yeah, the introduction isn't all that long, but we made it through chapter 1 just fine. I still haven't uploaded the first VOD to YouTube, which I need to do. I'm probably going to do that as soon as I get off today. And maybe episode 2, just to keep them full. See, you're playing around some Battlefront 2 mods for Kodor skins. Oh, that's sick. Like, yeah, I guess they put Revan over, like... I'm gonna bet Anakin. Is Revan over Anakin? That feels like what they'd go for. Let's see. I'll also mention this time we're essentially a product sponsored live. We are advertising the Revenge of the Sith Deluxe Edition because I tried not to do that and TikTok yelled at me over and over because I was promoting a product, that being a book, without like actually having it linked. And it's like, I'm not promoting, I mean, I am promoting it, I guess. I'm reading the book and telling people they should read it, but like, I'm not selling something. I didn't want to be. I guess I am now. Let's see. Replacing Dooku with Nihilus. Revan is over Kylo. Interesting. And Anakin for, Jedi Revan. That also makes sense. I figures want to have both Revans around. Kylo's a funny one. Kylo over Revan. I can kind of see it. I can see Revan having... Ben has such a, like, broad sweep fighting style. I could see Revan being a good fit for it. Let me set that aside. But yeah, today we'll be reading Chapter 2 of Revenge of the Sith. And I think I should be able to make through the whole thing. I got a little hoarse, a little loose by the end of Chapter 1. But I'm thinking I don't have the introduction to get through this time. And we'll do a little bit less of just recapping. But I do want to, if I'm advertising the deluxe edition, I do want to show off one of the author's notes that I think is absolutely delightful. Where at the end of Chapter 1, there's a whole bit about how Obi-Wan and Anakin are the perfect pair. And, he mentions school children arguing about which one would win in a fight if they ever were to. And it goes, whether Obi-Wan's legendary cleverness might beat Anakin's raw power, straight up no rules, is the subject of schoolyard fistfights, creche pool wriggle matches, and pod chamber stink wars across the Republic. These struggles always end, somehow, with the combatants on both sides admitting that it doesn't matter. Anakin and Obi-Wan would never fight each other. They couldn't. They're a team. They're the team. And both of them are sure they always will be. And it's like, that's such a good line, that's such a good segment, and it's such a gut punch. And then there's an author's note right at the end there where Matthew Stover himself says, "Burns a little, huh? I hope so. Writing it stung me, and I hate to suffer alone." That's so good. That's the best. Just straight up putting in little bits of comedy. It's so sweet but hurts. Exactly. He knows just how to twist the knife in this. It's perfect. Epic author moment. Absolutely. Anything Matthew Stover has written is fantastic. And not just books. Like, there's an interview with the author at the end of Heroes Die that is a delight to read. So let's see. 10:05, we got a whole bunch of people, but I think that's dropping quickly. That tends to happen with promoted lives, is that, it just gets sent out. But welcome everyone who wants to stay. We're going to be reading Chapter 2 of Revenge of the Sith in a minute. I try to give a couple minutes just for anyone who wants to read along can join in and catch up. I'd hate for someone to just miss the first minute. Gonna read more this morning, only on Chapter 1. Well, feel free to stay if you want to listen to Chapter 2. But yeah, you can't stay long. No worries, man. No obligation. I'm glad to see you for a little bit. Let's see. I figure, we'll get started now, and hopefully anyone who still isn't here can come join. Because Chapter 2 is Dooku. And yeah, we've just landed on the invisible hand. Anakin and Obi-Wan are about to start moving in. And we're looking for Chancellor Palpatine. The storm of blaster fire ricocheting through the hangar bay suddenly ceased. Clusters of battle droids withdrew behind ships and slipped out hatchways. Obi-Wan's familiar grimace showed past his blade as he let it shrink away. I hate it when they do that. Anakin's lightsaber was already back on his belt. When they do what? Disengage and fall back for no reason. There's always a reason, Master. Obi-Wan nodded. That's why I hate it. Anakin looked at the litter of smoking droid parts scattered throughout the hangar bay, shrugged, and snugged his black glove. R2, where's the Chancellor? The little droid's data jack rotated in the wall socket. Its holoprojector eye swiveled, and the blue scanning laser built a ghostly image near Anakin's boot. Palpatine, shackled into a large swivel chair. Even in the tiny translucent blur, he looked exhausted and in pain, but alive. Anakin's heart thumped once, painfully against his ribs. He wasn't too late. Not this time. He dropped to one knee and squinted at the image. Palpatine looked as if he'd aged 10 years since Anakin had last seen him. Muscle bulged along the young Jedi's jaw. If Grievous had hurt the Chancellor, had so much as touched him. The hand of jointed durasteel inside his black glove clenched so hard that electronic feedback made his shoulder ache. Obi-Wan spoke from over that shoulder. Do you have a location? The image rippled and twisted into a schematic map of the cruiser. Far up at the top of the conning spire, R2 showed a pulsar of brighter blue. In the General's quarters. Obi-Wan scowled. Any sign of Grievous himself? The pulsar shifted to the cruiser's bridge. And guards? The hollow image rippled again and transformed into an image of the cruiser's general's quarters once more. Palpatine appeared to be alone. The chair sat in the center of an arc of empty floor, facing a huge curved viewing wall. Anakin muttered, That doesn't make sense. Of course it does. It's a trap. Anakin barely heard him. He stared down at his black-gloved fist. He opened his fist, closed it, opened it again. The ache from his shoulder flowed down to the middle of his bicep, and didn't stop. His elbow sizzled, and his forearm. His wrist had been packed with red-hot gravel, and his hand was on fire. But it wasn't his hand, or his wrist, or his forearm, or his elbow. It was a creation of jointed durasteel and electro drivers. Anakin? Anakin's lips drew back from his teeth. It hurts. What, your replacement arm? When did you have it equipped with pain sensors? I didn't. That's the point. The pain is in your mind, Anakin. No. Anakin's heart froze over. His voice went cold as space. I can feel him. Him? Dooku. He's here. Here on this ship. Ah, Obi-Wan nodded. I'm sure he is. You knew? I guessed. Do you think Grievous couldn't have found Palpatine's beacon? It can hardly be an accident that through all the ECM, the Chancellor's homing signal was in the clear. This is a trap. A Jedi trap. Obi-Wan laid a warm hand upon Anakin's shoulder, and his face was as grim as Anakin had ever seen it. Possibly a trap set for us, personally. Anakin's jaw tightened. You're thinking of how he tried to recruit you on Geonosis, before he sent you down for execution. It's not impossible that we will again face that choice. It's not a choice. Anakin rose. His durasteel hand clenched and stayed that way, a centimeter from his lightsaber. Let him ask. My answer is right here on my belt. Be mindful, Anakin. The Chancellor's safety is our only priority. Yes, of course. The ice in Anakin's chest thawed. All right, it's a trap. Next move. Obi-Wan allowed himself a bit of a smile of his own as he headed for the nearest exit from the hangar bay. Same as always, my young friend. We spring it. I can work with this plan. Anakin turned to his astromech. You stay here, R2. The little droid interrupted him with a wheedling whir. No arguments. Stay. I mean it. R2-D2's whistling reply had a distinctly sulky tone. Listen, R2, someone has to maintain computer contact. Do you see a data jack anywhere on me? The droid seemed to acquiesce, but not before weeping what sounded like it might have been a suggestion where to look. I'll take a pause there. The fact that R2 is telling, check, up your butt. Is Mr. Bones in this novel? Not quite. Mr. Bones won't be created for about a decade after this released. But there's even better stuff in this novel. There's Anakin and Obi-Wan. Alright, let's see, where was I? Waiting by the open hatchway, Obi-Wan shook his head. Honestly, the way you talk to that thing... Anakin started toward him. Careful, Master, you'll hurt his feelings. He stopped in his tracks, a curious look on his face, as if he was trying to frown and to smile at the same time. Anakin? He didn't answer. He couldn't answer. He was looking at an image inside his head. Not an image, a reality. A memory of something that hadn't happened yet. He saw Count Dooku on his knees. He saw lightsabers crossed at the Count's throat. Clouds lifted from his heart. Clouds of Jabim, of Argonar, of Camino, of even the Tuscan camp. For the first time in too many years he felt young as he really was. Young and free and full of light. Master. His voice seemed to be coming from someone else. Someone who hadn't seen what he'd seen, hadn't done what he'd done. Master, right here, right now, you and I? Yes? He blinked. I think we're about to win the war. The vast semisphere of the view wall bloomed with battle. Sophisticated sensor algorithms compressed the combat that sprawled throughout the galactic capital's orbit to a view the naked eye could enjoy. Cruisers hundreds of kilometers apart, exchanging fire at near light speed, appeared to be practically hull to hull, joined by pulsing cables of flame. Turbolaser blasts became swift shafts of light that shattered into prismatic splinters against shields, or bloomed into miniature supernova that swallowed ships whole. The invisible gnat clouds of starfighter dogfights became a gleaming dance of shadow moths at the end of Coruscant's brief spring. Within that immense curve of computer-filtered carnage, the only furnishing was one lone chair, centered in an expanse of empty floor. This was called the General's Chair, just as this apartment atop the flagship's conning spire was called the General's Quarters. With his back to that chair and to the man shackled within it, hands folded behind him beneath the cloak of silken armor weave, stood Count Dooku. Stood Darth Tyrannus, Lord of the Sith. He looked upon his master's handiwork, and it was good. More than good. It was magnificent. Even the occasional tremor of the deck beneath his boots, as the entire ship shuddered under enemy torpedo and turbolaser blasts, felt to him like applause. Behind him sounded the initiating hum of an intra-ship holocom, which crackled into a voice both electronic and oddly expressive, as though a man spoke through a droid's electrosonic vocabulator. Let's see. Lord Tyrannus, Kenobi and Skywalker have arrived. Yes, Dooku had felt them both in the Force. Drive them toward me. My lord, I must express once more my objections. Dooku turned. From his commanding height, he stared down at the blue-scanned holo-image of Invisible Hand's commander. Your objections have been noted already, General. Leave the Jedi to me. But driving them to you also sends them directly toward the Chancellor himself. Why does he remain on this ship at all? He should be hidden. He should be guarded. We should have had him out system hours ago. Matters are so, Count Dooku said, because Lord Sidious wishes them so. Should you desire to press your objections, please feel at liberty to take them up with him. I don't believe that will be necessary. Very well, then. Confine your efforts to preventing support troops from boarding. Without their pet clones to back them up, no Jedi is a danger to me. The deck shuddered again, more sharply, followed by a sudden shift in the vector of the cruiser's artificial gravity that would have sent a lesser man stumbling. With the force to maintain the dignified solidity of his posture, the effect on Dooku was confined to the lift of one eyebrow. "And may I suggest that you devote some attention to protecting this ship? Having it destroyed with both you and me aboard might put something of a cramp in the war effort, don't you think?" "It is already being done, my lord. Does my lord wish to observe the progress of the Jedi? I can feed the security monitors onto this channel." "Thank you, General. That will be welcome." "Gracious as ever, my lord. Grievous, out." Count Dooku allowed himself a near-invisible smile. His inviolable courtesy, the hallmark of a true aristocrat, was effortless, yet somehow it seemed always to impress the common rabble, as well as those with the intellect of common rabble, regardless of accomplishment or station, like, for example, that repulsive cyborg Grievous. He sighed. Grievous had his uses. Not only was he an able field commander, but he would soon make a marvelous scapegoat upon whom to hang every atrocity of this sadly necessary war. Someone had to take that particular fall, and Grievous was just the creature for the job. It certainly would not be Dooku. This was, in fact, one purpose of the cataclysmic battle outside, but not the only one. The blue scanned image before him now became miniatures of Kenobi and Skywalker as he had seen them so many times before. Shoulder to shoulder, lightsabers whirling as they enthusiastically dismantled droid after droid after droid, feeling as if they were winning, while in truth they were being chivied exactly where the Lords of the Sith wanted them to go. Such children they were. Dooku shook his head. It was almost too easy. Here, I'll take a pause there to take a sip of my water. See, we're getting a lot of comments filtered, but it's not even showing me what they look like. But yeah, this whole opening is so good. The amount of depth it provides to Dooku, you know, we're about to dive into this is Count Dooku, and what a chapter. All right, let's continue. Oh, hang on. As I'm flipping around, I got myself back on the wrong page. Even though it's no longer canon, Stover's work remains the benchmark for film novels. Oh yeah, easily. I mean, by far the best. As far as I'm concerned, it is canon. And enough works have referenced it, you know. Shadow of the Sith directly pulls, like, quotes from Revenge of the Sith. And that's a canon novel, so, like, you know, we can essentially say. All right. This is Dooku, Darth Tyrannus, Count of Sereno. Once a great Jedi Master, now an even greater Lord of the Sith, Dooku is a dark colossus bestriding the galaxy. Nemesis of the corrupt Republic, Oriflamme of the principled Confederacy of Independent Systems, he is the very personification of shock and awe. He was one of the most respected and powerful Jedi in the Order's 25,000-year history, yet at the age of 70, Dooku's principles would no longer allow him to serve a republic in which political power was for sale to the highest bidder. He'd said farewell to his close friends on the Jedi Council, Mace Windu and the ancient Master Yoda. He'd said farewell to the Order itself. He is numbered among the lost, the Jedi who renounced their fealty to the Order and resigned their commissions of Jedi knighthood in service of ideals higher than even the Order itself professed. The Lost 20, as they have been known since Dooku joined their number, are remembered with both honor and regret among the Jedi. Their images, sculpted from bronzium, stand enshrined in the temple archives. These bronzium images serve as melancholy reminders that some Jedi have needs the Order cannot satisfy. Dooku had retired to his family estate, the planetary system of Sereno. Assuming his hereditary title as its count made him one of the wealthiest beings in the galaxy. Amid the unabashed corruption endemic to the Republic, his immense wealth could have brought the allegiance of any given number of senators. He could, perhaps, have bought control of the Republic itself. Please wait, pause. I have to go to practice. You'll be back at 1. I'm afraid we've already begun. I will be uploading this and the first chapter to YouTube after I get off here, so you can catch up then. You skip Revenge of the Sith. Sometimes it's too hard to watch. It's a tough one. It's heartbreaking. Let's see. Yeah, he could have bought control of the Republic itself. But a man of such heritage, such principle, could never stoop to be lord of a garbage heap, chief of a horde of scavengers squabbling over scraps. The Republic, to him, was nothing more than this. Instead, he used all the great power of his family fortune, and the vastly greater power of his unquestioned integrity, to begin the cleansing of the galaxy from the fester of this so-called democracy. He is the icon of the separatist movement, its public face. He is to the Confederacy of Independent Systems what Palpatine is to the Republic, the living symbol of the justice of its cause. This is the public story. This is the story that even Dooku, in his weaker moments, almost believes. The truth is more complicated. Dooku is different. He doesn't remember quite when he discovered this. It may have been when he was a young Padawan, betrayed by another learner who had claimed to be his friend. Lorian Nod had said it to his face. You don't know what friendship is. And he didn't. He had been angry, certainly, furious that his reputation had been put at risk, and he had been angry at himself for his error in judgment, trusting as an ally one who was in fact an enemy. The most astonishing part of the whole affair had been that even after turning on him before the Jedi, the other boy had expected him to participate in a lie in the name of their friendship. It had been all so preposterous that he hadn't known how to reply. In fact, he has never been entirely sure what beings mean when they speak of friendship. Love, hate, joy, anger, even when he can feel the energy of these emotions in others, they translate in his perception to other kinds of feelings, the kinds that make sense. Jealousy he understands, and possessiveness. He is fierce when any being encroaches on what is rightfully his. Intolerance at the intractability of the universe, and at the undisciplined lives of its inhabitants, this is his normal state. Spite is a recreation. He takes considerable pleasure from the suffering of his enemies. Pride is a virtue in an aristocrat, and indignation his inalienable right. When any dare to impugn his integrity, his honor, or his rightful place atop the natural hierarchy of authority. And moral outrage makes perfect sense to him, when the incorrigibly untidy affairs of ordinary beings refuse to conform to the plainly obvious structure of how society ought to be. He is entirely incapable of caring what any given creature might feel for him. He cares only what that creature might do for him, or to him. Very possibly, he is what he is because other beings just aren't very interesting, or even, in a sense, entirely real. Is he reading the Bible? No. Close enough. Revenge of the Sith by Matthew Stover. Pretty close to a Bible. For Dooku, other beings are mostly abstractions, simple schematic sketches who fall into two essential categories. The first category is assets, beings who can be used to serve his various interests, such as, for most of his life, and to some extent even now, the Jedi, particularly Mace Windu and Yoda, both of whom had regarded him as their friend for so long that it had effectively blinded them to the truth of his activities. And, of course, for now, the Trade Federation and the Intergalactic Banking Clan, the Techno Union, the Corporate Alliance, and the Weapon Lords of Geonosis, and even the common rabble of the galaxy, who exist largely to provide an audience of sufficient size to do justice to his grandeur. The other category is threats. In this second set, he numbers every sentient being he cannot include in the first. There is no third category. Someday there may not even be a second. Being considered a threat by Count Dooku is a death sentence. A death sentence he plans to pronounce, for example, on his current allies, the heads of the aforementioned Trade Federation, Intergalactic Banking Clan, Techno Union, and Corporate Alliance, and Geonosian Weaponeers. Treachery is the way of the Sith. See, anytime a casual fan says Dooku is not a Sith, you point them to this passage. Yeah, it's, I get, what people mean when they say it, that, Dooku isn't as, fully cold-bloodedly evil as Palpatine. He's no Palpatine, to be sure, but he's absolutely a bad guy. He's absolutely a Sith. He believes as fully in it as anyone. And real quick, as I'm sharing, this is, the deluxe edition. There's an author note right after "Treachery is the way of the Sith." Matthew Stover says, "Ooh, that's a catchy slogan. I think I nicked it from Drew Karpyshyn's Darth Bane trilogy. Could it be foreshadowing?" Just the way he writes these is so much fun. All right. Let me adjust myself a little bit. I feel like I gotta get my posture right for this, Get plenty of air in the diaphragm. Count Dooku watched with clinical distaste as the blue-scanned images of Kenobi and Skywalker engaged in a preposterous farce chase, pursued by destroyer droids into and out of turbolift pods that shot upward and downward and even sideways. "It will be," he said slowly, meditatively, as though he spoke only to himself, "an embarrassment to be captured by him." The voice that answered him was so familiar that sometimes his very thoughts spoke in it instead of in his own. "An embarrassment you can survive, Lord Tyrannus. After all, he is the greatest Jedi alive, is he not? And have we not ensured that all the galaxy shares this opinion?" "Quite so, my master, quite so." Again, Dooku sighed. Today he felt every hour of his 83 years. "It is fatiguing to play the villain for so long, master. I find myself looking forward to an honorable captivity." A captivity that would allow him to sit out the rest of the war in comfort. A captivity that would allow him to forswear his former allegiances, when he would conveniently appear to finally discover the true extent of the Separatists' crimes against civilization, and bind himself to the new government with his reputation for integrity and idealism fully intact. The new government. This had been their star of destiny for lo these many years. A government clean, pure, direct. None of the messy scramble for the favor of ignorant rabble and subhuman creatures that made up the republic he so despised. The government he would serve would be authority personified. Human authority. It was no accident that the primary powers of the Confederacy of Independent Systems were Nemoidian, Skakoan, Quarren and Aqualish, Moon and Gossam, Cymerthian and Kurivar and Geonosian. At war's end, the aliens would be crushed, stripped of all they possessed, and their systems and their wealth would be given into the hands of the only beings who could be trusted with them. Human beings. Dooku would serve an empire of man. And he would serve it as only he could, as he was born to. He would smash the Jedi Order to create it anew, not shackled by the corrupt, narcissistic, shabby little beings who called themselves politicians, but free to bring both authority and true peace to a galaxy that so badly needed both. An order that would not negotiate, would not mediate, an order that would enforce. The survivors of the Jedi Order would become the Sith army, the fist of the Empire. And that fist would become a power beyond any Jedi's darkest dreams. The Jedi were not the only users of the Force in the galaxy. From Hapes to Harun Kal, from Kifu to Dathomir, powerful Force-capable humans and near-humans had long refused to surrender their children to lifelong bound servitude in the Jedi Order. They would not so refuse the Sith army. They would not have the choice. Dooku frowned down at the holo-image. Kenobi and Skywalker were going through more low-comedy business with another bulky turbolift, possibly Grievous having some fun with the shaft controls, while battle droids haplessly pursued. Really, it was all so undignified. So much is going on you can't visualize? Oh, like what? Shaft. Let's see. Stover and Luceno were always good to actually learn the lore and incorporate it into their own work. Yes. Luceno in particular is like a master of it. But, it's funny. When I first read this, and I think the last time I had really read it, I go through Revenge of the Sith all the time, but I usually find choice sections and reread those rather than a start to finish reread. I know what's going to happen. The last time I read this, I don't think I knew what Hapes was. I don't think I had read Courtship yet. So this is such a fun oh hey, yeah, Hapes. Even Kifu, I'm less familiar, but I know the deal with Kifu. Harun Kal is obviously where Mace Windu comes from, and it has its whole Korunai Force users, and then the Dathomiri witches are of course theirs as well. Now, does Hapes have a particular legacy of the Force that I'm not familiar with? I mean, they're an independent kingdom, but Isolder seemed pretty unfamiliar with the Force. Maybe he's just referencing a planet that, like, they can have Force sensitives. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I know, there's more stuff about Hapes as we get further. I'm reading Young Jedi Knights right now with Tenel Ka Jo, and obviously being the heir of Hapes, I assume we're going to get some context on it from her. But yeah, it's always fun seeing those little references. All right. May I suggest, Master, that we give Kenobi one last chance? The support of a Jedi of his integrity would be invaluable in establishing the political legitimacy of our empire. Ah, yes, Kenobi. His master's voice went silken. You have long been interested in Kenobi, haven't you? Of course. His master was my Padawan. In a sense, he's practically my grandson. He is too old, too indoctrinated, irretrievably poisoned by Jedi fables. We established that on Geonosis, did we not? In his mind, he serves the Force itself. Reality is nothing in the face of such conviction. Dooku sighed. He should, he supposed, have no difficulty with this, having ordered the Jedi Master's death once already. True enough, I suppose. How fortunate we are that I never labored under any such illusions. Kenobi must die. Today. At your hand. His death may be the code key of the final lock that will seal Skywalker to us forever. Dooku understood. Not only would the death of his mentor tip Skywalker's already unstable emotional balance down the darkest of slopes, but it would also remove the greatest obstacle to Skywalker's successful conversion. As long as Kenobi was alive, Skywalker would never be securely in the camp of the Sith. Kenobi's unshakable faith in the values of the Jedi would keep the Jedi blindfold on Skywalker's eyes and the Jedi shackles on the young man's true power. Still, though, Dooku had some reservations. This had all come about too quickly. Had Sidious thought through all the implications of this operation? But I must ask, my master, is Skywalker truly the man we want? He is powerful, potentially more powerful than even myself. Which is precisely, Dooku said meditatively, why it might be best if I were to kill him instead. Are you so certain that you can? Please, of what use is power unstructured by discipline? The boy's as much a danger to himself as he is to his enemies, and that mechanical arm. Dooku's lip curled with cultivated distaste. Revolting. Then perhaps you should have spared his real arm. Humph. A gentleman would have learned to fight one-handed. Dooku flicked a dismissive wave. He's no longer even entirely human. With Grievous, the use of these bio-droid devices is almost forgivable. He was such a disgusting creature already that his mechanical parts are clearly an improvement. But a blend of droid and human? Appalling. The depths of bad taste. How are we to justify associating with him? How fortunate I am. The silk in his master's voice softened further. To have an apprentice who feels it appropriate to lecture me. Dooku lifted an eyebrow. I have overstepped, my master, he said, with his customary grace. I am only observing, not arguing, not at all. Skywalker's arm makes him, for our purposes, even better. It is the permanent symbol of the sacrifices he has made in the name of peace and justice. It is a badge of heroism that he must publicly wear for the rest of his life. No one can ever look at him and doubt his honor, his courage, his integrity. He is perfect just as he is. Perfect. The only question that remains is whether he is capable of transcending the artificial limitations of his Jedi indoctrination. And that, my Lord Count, is precisely what today's operation is designed to discover. Dooku could not argue. Not only had the Dark Lord introduced Dooku to realms of power beyond his most spectacular fantasies, but Sidious was also a political manipulator so subtle that his abilities might be considered to dwarf even the power of the dark side itself. It was said that whenever the Force closes a hatch, it opens a viewport, and every viewport that had so much as cracked in the past 13 standard years had found a Dark Lord of the Sith already at the rim, peering in, calculating how best to slip through. Improving upon his master's plan was near to impossible. His own idea of substituting Kenobi for Skywalker, he had to admit, was only the product of a certain misplaced sentimentality. Skywalker was almost certainly the man for the job. He should be. Darth Sidious had spent a considerable number of years making him so. Today's test would remove the almost. He had no doubt that Skywalker would fall. Dooku understood that this was more than a test for Skywalker. Though Sidious had never said so directly, Dooku was certain that he himself was being tested as well. Success today would show his master that he was worthy of the mantle of mastery himself. By the end of the coming battle, he would have initiated Skywalker into the manifold glories of the dark side, just as Sidious had initiated him. He gave no thought to failure. Why should he? "But, forgive me, Master, but Kenobi having fallen to my blade, are you certain Skywalker will ever accept my orders? You must admit that his biography offers little confidence that he is capable of obedience at all." Who's reading the Charlie Kirk book? If Charlie Kirk had ever read Revenge of the Sith, he would be a much cooler person. Charlie Kirk would see a lot of himself in Count Dooku, I think. That's what we need. Every Republican needs to read Revenge of the Sith, and then America would be just hunky-dory. We'd be doing great. Self-awareness, oh yeah. That's true, I'm asking a lot of them, aren't I? Skywalker's power brings with it more than mere obedience. It brings creativity and luck. We need never concern ourselves with the sort of instruction that Grievous, for example, requires. Even the blind fools on the Jedi Council see clearly enough to understand this. Even they no longer try to tell him how, they merely tell him what, and he finds a way. He always has. Dooku nodded. For the first time since Sidious had revealed the true subtlety of this masterpiece, Dooku allowed himself to relax enough to imagine the outcome. With his heroic capture of Count Dooku, Anakin Skywalker will become the ultimate hero, the greatest hero in the history of the Republic, perhaps of the Jedi Order itself. The loss of his beloved partner will add just exactly the correct spice of tragedy to give melancholy weight to his every word when he gives his HoloNet interviews denouncing the Senate's corruption as impeding the war effort, when he delicately, oh so delicately, not to mention reluctantly, insinuates that corruption in the Jedi Order prolonged the war as well. When he announces the creation of a new order of Force-using warriors. He will be the perfect commanding general for the Sith army. Dooku could only shake his head in awe, and to think that only days earlier the Jedi had seemed so close to uncovering, even destroying, all he and his master had worked for. But he should never have feared. His master never lost. He would never lose. He was the definition of unbeatable. How can one defeat an enemy one thinks is a friend? And now, with a single brilliant stroke, his master would turn the Jedi Order back upon itself like an Ithrani Ouroboros devouring its own tail. This was the day, the hour. The death of Obi-Wan Kenobi would be the death of the Republic. Today he would see the birth of the Empire. Tyrannus, are you well? Am I? Dooku realized that his eyes had misted. Yes, my master, I am beyond well. Today the climax, the grand finale, the culmination of all your decades of work. I find myself somewhat overcome. Compose yourself, Tyrannus. Kenobi and Skywalker are nearly at the door. Play your part, my apprentice, and the galaxy is ours. Dooku straightened, and for the first time looked his master in the eyes. Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith, sat in the general's chair, shackled to it at the wrist and ankle. Dooku bowed to him. Thank you, Chancellor. Palpatine of Naboo, Supreme Chancellor of the Republic, replied, Withdraw. They are here. And there we go. That is the end of Chapter 2, and I do think that's where we'll stop for the day. I think the longer I go, the more flubs I tend to make, and I don't want to overdo anything. How many chapters are there? How much am I setting myself up for if I do just one chapter alive? 20? Maybe we'll see. Some days I'll have longer streaks. But yeah, I love that ending. I really like the way that a lot of books in the Clone Wars multimedia project at the time treated it as a real secret that Dooku is, or that Palpatine is Sidious. You know, it was never all that much of a secret because they're played by the same actor, and anyone who really wanted to know could. But the fact is that, like, in universe, no one knew. So, like, other books go to great lengths to make sure that Sidious and Palpatine are never presented as the same person. There's never any, like, real hints about it, only ever little winking nods. And then this finally, Stover builds this whole chapter with Sidious, and then only at the very end reveals that, yeah, it's Palpatine. He's still shackled in the chair there. That's so good. It was primarily for the young readers at the time. Yeah, I'm sure, that was largely the intent, but it's also like, even if you think a twist is going to be obvious, it's still important to maintain an air of mystery. Stover even mentions that this book was published a little bit before the movie, about a month before Revenge of the Sith came out. So he said that, like, it's entirely possible that this is the first time someone actually learned that Palpatine is Sidious, and so he wanted to, make sure that it had appropriate dramatic weight. And then let's see. This little passage may have been the first time in prequel media that Chancellor Palpatine is openly revealed and confirmed to be Darth Sidious. Unless you made the mistake of reading a different retelling first, I can't be held responsible for any such disastrous errors in judgment on your part. I guess, yeah, for people who read, like, the junior novelization, it's like, he's right. That would be an error. But yeah, that's Chapter 2 of Revenge of the Sith. We'll see, maybe I'll go up to 2 at a time soon, but by the end of the first live, I was really, like, stumbling over my words and tripping. I may have to find some other way of arranging it to go, like, 1.5. Howdy, Commander Shepard. We just finished up Chapter 2 of Revenge of the Sith. I'm probably just going to chat for a minute before I hop off. Maybe this time the ending will be different. Yeah, maybe. Fingers crossed. Who do you think is older, Superman or Supergirl? Supergirl is older. She just didn't age for 30 years. That's always the interesting, like, quirk of that dynamic is, yeah, she's, like, literally older, but in any meaningful sense, she's, his kind of younger cousin. But yeah, I like Superman. And yeah, Revenge of the Sith, God, what a book. It's the absolute best. And yeah, like I said, I'm going to upload this VOD as well as the first one that I did last week to YouTube as soon as I get off here, just to let anyone who, wasn't around catch it. Although I would recommend just as much, just get the book and read Chapter 2, then join up for Chapter 3. But thank you, few of you, for staying here and chatting with me. It's been a pleasure having you. I hope you've enjoyed the reading. Let's see. It gives a reason for him treating her as older than him. Yeah, Kara, she remembers Krypton, and Superman doesn't. He was just a baby. So it's like they've got a very drastically different perspective on that too. But yeah, have a great rest of your day, everyone. I'm grateful to have you here. Let's see. Oh yeah, real quick, I could answer that. Where did you get those lightsabers behind you, and how much did they cost? Let's see. The two I've got here. This one is a NeoPixel. I want to say it was from, like, ProSabers.com. It was probably about, like, $200, maybe $160. I got one of the cheapest models, but it is a NeoPixel, so it's gonna be expensive. This is the Galaxy's Edge Luke Skywalker. It's actually half of the Galaxy's Edge Luke Skywalker because it unscrews at the middle. This one was also around $200. I don't remember precisely either, but oh, howdy, Paige, welcome. Thank you for all the gifts, the hearts. Oh. Let's see, you want to go to Disney and build your own, but you heard it's really expensive. It is a little. It comes to about $300 to build your own. I have my hand built. Oh, it's on the other side of the room. I can go grab it if you'd like to see the one I made in Galaxy's Edge. Thank you, Paige. Oh, all the corn. I've really got to write. I may actually sit down after I get off here and write the corn cob story, because I had a, there was a part that I couldn't get to work, and then I had an epiphany a couple of days ago that I was like, oh, do this. So I've gotten past the roadblock I had, and I need to just actually write it now. Let's see. Always wait for the holiday or the May the 4th sale. I don't know that Disney does like a May the 4th. It's you. God, what am I built mine on May the 5th, and it was still pretty much full price. I think they know that you're going to come and do it anyways. Let's see. There's a cheaper option for building a lightsaber somewhere in Galaxy's Edge. So, let's see. In Galaxy's Edge, I think the only way is at Sava's workshop, which is the 300. In Disney in general, you can build. There's just a kind of cheap plastic lightsaber that's one of the classic, you flick it and the blade extends. But it's similar. You have a bunch of segmented pieces. You can build your own lightsaber for closer to $50. It might even be a little bit less than that. So yeah, it's it's not like a nice fancy lightsaber like these ones, but it does it scratches the itch of hey, I've built a lightsaber. So that's always fun. But yeah, I think unfortunately for the main ones, because it is a nice saber too, and you get a free pin, you get a carrying case that comes with it. They try to give plenty of accoutrement to make it worthwhile. I still think it's a little overpriced, but but the experience is also a lot of fun. I had a great time building mine. But yeah, I'm gonna hop off and probably write Corncob immediately. Like I said, I'm gonna upload Chapter 2 of Revenge of the Sith to YouTube today, so if anyone who missed it wants to watch, you can feel free to check that out, or get the book and read it for yourself. It's incredible. How's it going, Goob? Everyone's showing up right at the end. Oh. But yeah, that's all for today. Thank you all so much. Even if you stopped in at the end, it's always a delight to see you. I don't have anything else much to say for today, so have a good one, everybody.